You know, I've been in medicine for a long time. And there's one quiet truth I've come to realize, something few doctors will say out loud. Most of us aren't scared of dying. We're scared of reaching the end and realizing we never truly lived. Let that sink in. I've seen it on the faces of patients in their 60s, 70s, even 90s, people who worked hard their entire lives, raised families, paid their dues, and followed all the rules. But when life finally slowed down, they weren't sure what to do with it. They'd saved, planned, and waited for the perfect time to enjoy it all. And then one day they blinked and realized that time had quietly passed them by. So if you're listening to this and you're over 60, I want you to know something important. This chapter of your life isn't the end. It's not the slow fade out before the credits roll. It's your second act. And in many ways, it can be your most beautiful one, if you stop doing the things that hold you back. Let's start with something I see all the time, both in clinic and in everyday life, saving money out of fear. Now don't get me wrong, saving is smart. Necessary, even. Many of us grew up with the voice in our heads whispering, save for a rainy day, or don't touch that money, you might need it later. And that mindset probably helped you get where you are. But here's what no one tells you, if you keep saving out of fear, even when you have enough, it can start to rob you of joy. I once sat with a man in his 70s who had over $2 million tucked away. No debt, house paid off, good health. But every time his wife brought up going on a trip, buying something nice, or even having dinner out, he'd flinch. What if something happens, he'd ask. What if we need it later? So I gently asked him, what if you don't? What if later never comes the way you imagine? That question stayed with him, and maybe it stays with you too. You see, your savings are not just for disaster. They're for living. For connection. For memories. For joy. If you've planned well and your basic needs are covered, then please, give yourself permission to enjoy the life you've worked so hard to build. Spend wisely, yes, but spend without guilt. As one Harvard study on aging and well-being found, people who actively invest in relationships and experiences, not just financially, but emotionally, live longer and report greater happiness. Let that guide you. So instead of asking, what if I run out, try asking, what's worth spending on while I still can? Because your time is not someday. It's now. So now that you've stopped saving out of fear, what should you do with that money? Well, let me tell you a little secret I've learned from my patients over the years, something that has nothing to do with your financial advisor and everything to do with your heart. Spending money isn't bad. But spending money without joy? That's the real waste. I remember a woman, let's call her Helen. She was 72, sharp as a tack, and had a closet that could rival any department store. Shoes she never wore. Jewelry still in boxes. Gifts she bought out of obligation. You name it, she had it. But when I asked her about her happiest recent memory, she didn't mention a single item she bought. Instead, her eyes lit up as she told me about a $600 plane ticket, one she used to surprise her sister on her birthday. They laughed. They cried. They stayed up late talking like teenagers again. And that memory, that one weekend, meant more to her than a decade of shopping trips combined. You see the difference? After 60, your money should reflect what matters most to you, not what's trendy, not what impresses others, and certainly not what fills a void. Maybe it's dinners with close friends. Maybe it's supporting a grandchild's education. Maybe it's a new chair that makes your back feel better every morning. Whatever it is, spend there. Let go of the things that feel empty or forced. Don't spend out of guilt. Don't spend to keep up appearances. Spend because it brings you peace or laughter or meaning. And remember, joy doesn't always have a price tag. Some of the richest moments I've seen people cherish happen without spending a cent, sitting on the porch with someone they love, writing a letter by hand, walking through a quiet park without their phone buzzing. So before you spend anything, ask yourself, is this helping me live the life I want, or is it just noise? Spend with intention. Spend with heart. Because the goal isn't to have more stuff or less stuff, it's to have more life. And speaking of life, let's talk about time. This one's personal for me. Because as a doctor, I've seen what happens when people wait too long to live. So here's the next shift I want to offer you. Stop trading your time for money, unless that trade still brings you meaning. Look, for most of your life, the equation was simple. Time equals paycheck. You worked hard, you showed up, and you earned your living 1 hour at a time. Even when it was exhausting. Even when it wasn't appreciated. But now you're in a different chapter. And in this chapter, time becomes your most precious currency. So I have to ask, are you still working because you love it, or because you're afraid to stop? Does your job give you purpose, or just keep you busy? Don't misunderstand me, I'm not saying you should retire the moment you turn 60. I know people who find tremendous joy in their work well into their 70s and 80s. I had a patient, a high school teacher, who worked until he was 67. When people asked why, he smiled and said, "Because I still love it." But one morning, he woke up, and that feeling had changed. He felt done, and he walked away without regret. That's what I want for you. To work, or not work, on your terms. Because sadly, I also see the other side. People who stay in jobs they hate, just because they don't know who they are without them. People who are afraid of slowing down, because no one ever gave them permission to simply be. Here's the truth, you can always earn more money. But you can't earn more time. So if your work fills your cup, keep doing it with pride. But if it drains you, if it's keeping you from living the life you want, maybe it's time to let it go. You've traded time for money long enough. Now, it's time to start trading time for meaning. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever said to yourself, "I'll take that trip next year," or "I'll start that hobby once things settle down"? Or maybe, "I've always wanted to, but now's just not the right time." If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. We all do it. But here's what I've learned from sitting with people at all stages of life. Someday is not a day on the calendar. And too often, someday never comes. I once had a couple in their late 60s, bright, energetic, full of dreams. They told me about this Airstream trailer they'd been eyeing for years. They wanted to drive across the country, visit old friends, see national parks, wake up to sunrises in places they'd never been. They had the money. They had the time. But every summer they'd say, "Maybe next year." Then one winter, the husband had a minor health scare. Nothing major, but just enough to make them stop and think. And suddenly, next year didn't feel so guaranteed anymore. That spring, they packed up and hit the road. 6 months later, they sent me a postcard from New Mexico. It read, "Not every day is easy, but every day is ours." And that's enough. That story still gives me goosebumps. Because behind every delay is often fear of change, of doing something new, of finally choosing yourself after decades of choosing others. But what if this year, you stopped waiting? What if you gave yourself permission to start now, not in 5 years, not when the timing is perfect, but now? You are not too old. It is not too late. And you do not need anyone's permission but your own. Maybe there's a garden you've wanted to plant. A letter you've been meaning to write. A friend you haven't seen in years. A language you once dreamed of learning. Why not today? In fact, a 2023 study published in the journal Aging and Mental Health found that older adults who pursued delayed dreams reported a significant boost in life satisfaction and reduced symptoms of depression. Just the act of finally doing something for themselves, even something small, made a profound difference. So here's your challenge. Pick one thing you've been postponing. And take the first step today. Because this isn't about living in fear of death, it's about honoring life while it's still unfolding. And speaking of honoring life, let's talk about the one thing that makes every experience more possible, more joyful, and more sustainable, your health. And speaking of honoring life, let's talk about the one thing that makes every experience more possible, more joyful, and more sustainable, your health. Now I say this with love. Truly. Because I know how easy it is to put health on the back burner. You've spent decades caring for others, working hard, doing what needed to be done. And maybe somewhere along the line, taking care of yourself felt optional. Maybe even selfish. But let me say this clearly, it's not. Without your health, real, lasting, day-to-day health, it doesn't matter how much money you've saved, how beautiful your retirement home is, or how long your travel bucket list may be. If you don't have the energy or ability to enjoy those things, they quietly slip away. Let me ask you this, and be honest with yourself. Would you rather have $20 million in the bank, but feel tired, sick, and in pain every day? Or would you rather have just $1 million, but wake up feeling strong, clear-headed, and ready to move? Most people, when they really stop and think about it, choose the second. But the strange thing is, we often live like we're chasing the first. We skip checkups. We brush off pain. We put off that walk around the block. We say, next week I'll eat better, or I'll start exercising once it's not so hot, or I'm just getting old, it's normal to feel like this. But no, feeling run down is common, not normal. And the good news? You don't need to become a fitness guru or switch to kale smoothies overnight. You just need to start small. Start with a gentle walk. 1 lap around the block. Drink water before coffee. Stretch for 5 minutes in the morning. Find a chair yoga class or a local gym that offers senior-friendly fitness sessions. Many do. Even light resistance training, just a couple of times a week, has been shown to improve balance, reduce falls, and boost energy. In fact, a recent study published in the American Journal of Geriatric Psychiatry found that older adults who engaged in light physical activity 3 times a week had better memory, mood, and mobility compared to those who stayed sedentary. And remember, this isn't about losing weight or chasing youth. This is about keeping your freedom. It's about being able to play with your grandchildren without worrying about your knees. About traveling without fearing you'll need to sit down every 10 minutes. About waking up and feeling alive. Because your body, as it is today, is the vehicle that carries you through this chapter of life. And like any vehicle, it needs fuel. It needs maintenance. It needs care. So please, make that doctor's appointment you've been putting off. Cook one healthy meal this week. Just one. Go outside and move, even if it's just for 10 minutes. Not because you should, but because you deserve to feel good in your own skin. You've spent a lifetime being strong for others. Now it's time to be strong for you. Now, let's talk about something that weighs heavier than most of us admit. It's not your back. Or your knees. It's the expectations of others. For most of your life, you've probably carried those silently, doing what was expected, playing the roles, good parent, loyal spouse, dependable coworker, helpful neighbor. And you did them well. You gave and gave and gave. But now, I want to ask you a question no one may have asked before. Who are you living for now? I once had a woman in her mid-60s tell me something I'll never forget. She said, I've always wanted to paint. Like, really paint. But, what if I'm terrible? What if people think I'm being silly at my age? And I looked at her and said, so what if they do? You see, the moment she stopped needing approval, her life changed. She took the class. She bought the brushes. And no, she didn't become the next Georgia O'Keeffe, but she didn't need to. Because she finally did something just for herself. Let me tell you something powerful. The older you get, the more freedom you earn to stop caring about the noise around you. You want to wear leopard print and hot pink? Do it. You want to say no to family gatherings that leave you exhausted? You have that right. You want to travel alone, take up ballroom dancing, or plant nothing but wildflowers in your front yard? Please do. This isn't about being selfish. It's about being real. There's a book written by a hospice nurse, Bronnie Ware. She spent years listening to people's final thoughts, their deepest regrets. And the most common one? I wish I had lived a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. That hits deep, doesn't it? Because the longer you live by someone else's rules, the easier it is to disappear from your own life. So today, I want to offer you something simple but powerful. Say what you mean. Do what you love. Show up as you, fully, beautifully, honestly. No masks. No apologies. You don't need to earn your joy. You've already done the work. There's only one you in the history of the world, and you are still here. Still breathing. Still becoming. So please, don't waste another minute trying to fit into boxes that were never built for you. Break the mold. Color outside the lines. Because your life was never meant to be small. Let's take a breath together. In and out. Now I want you to think about what you've been feeding your mind lately, not your body, your mind. Because just like your diet affects your physical health, what you watch, read, and listen to deeply affects your emotional and mental well-being. And these days, it's far too easy to live in a constant state of stress without even realizing it. I'm talking about the news. The endless scroll of headlines. The 24/7 ticker of disasters, conflict, outrage, fear. Now let me be clear, I'm not saying you should be uninformed. Staying aware of the world around us is important. But there's a big difference between staying informed and being consumed. I've had patients tell me they spend hours every day glued to cable news or doom-filled social media threads. And then they wonder why they feel anxious, irritable, and disconnected. Why they feel like the world is falling apart. And I asked them gently, have you ever watched 3 hours of news and felt more hopeful afterward? No one ever says yes. But I can tell you what they do say when they take a break. They feel lighter. They sleep better. They laugh more. They remember that the world still has beauty in it. Because here's the truth, most modern news isn't designed to inform you, it's designed to keep your attention. And fear? Fear is the most powerful hook in the business. But after 60, your attention is your most valuable resource. You've earned the right to be selective with it. So ask yourself, is this helping me take action? Or is it just making me feel helpless? Instead of spending your mornings in front of a screen feeling overwhelmed, what if you started your day with music that makes you smile? Or a phone call with someone who makes you feel seen? Or even a quiet walk, where the only news is the sound of birds and your own breath? There is still kindness in this world. There are still people helping each other, planting gardens, writing books, laughing with their grandchildren. Don't let the noise drown that out. You can stay informed, absolutely. But stay grounded, too. Protect your peace. Limit how much you take in. Choose sources that respect your intelligence, not ones that profit from your panic. Because after everything you've lived through, you deserve a mind that feels calm. A spirit that feels safe. And a life that still feels good. Let's talk about money for a moment. I know, it's a topic that makes a lot of people either tune out or tense up. And for good reason. Money is deeply personal. It touches every part of our lives, our safety, our choices, our identity. But here's something I wish more people understood, especially after 60, money is not meant to be a source of fear. And it's not meant to be your master. It's meant to be a tool. A resource. Something that serves you, not something that robs you of joy. Now, I've seen two extremes over the years. On one side, there are folks who avoid their finances altogether. Maybe you know someone like this, or maybe it's you. They say things like, I'll look at the numbers later, or it's too overwhelming. I don't even want to know. But here's the hard truth, ignoring your financial plan doesn't make the problems go away. It just lets them grow in the dark. And after 60, it's more important than ever to have clarity. Do you know how much income you need each month? What happens if your health changes? Are you protected from unexpected costs? You don't need to be a financial expert, you just need to have a plan. One that gives you peace of mind and enough structure to feel supported. But on the other end of the spectrum, I've met people who think about nothing but money. Every decision is filtered through spreadsheets and tax brackets. I once had a client who asked, if I take a vacation, will that throw off my retirement projections? And I had to remind him, he didn't save and invest just to stare at numbers on a screen. He did it to live. To go places. To say yes to opportunities. To feel secure enough to enjoy his days, not just count them. The best retirement plans don't just show a high balance, they reflect a life well lived. So yes, check in with your advisor. Review your accounts. Understand the basics. But then, let go. Let your money do what it was meant to do, support your life, not control it. Because true financial freedom isn't just about how much you've saved. It's about being able to spend wisely, generously, and joyfully, without fear. You've worked hard. You've earned this chapter. Use your finances as a way to create comfort, not anxiety. To build memories, not tension. To say yes to things that matter, not endlessly postpone them. There's something I've learned from working with patients nearing the end of life, and it's this. It's not death we fear most, it's regret. Not the kind of regret that comes from small mistakes, but the deep, quiet ache of a life half-lived. Of too many things left unsaid. Too many dreams left waiting. And so I'll say something now that may sound harsh, but I say it with care. You don't have forever. Now, I don't say that to scare you. I say it because I want you to truly live. By the time we reach our 60s, most of us have been touched by loss. A parent. A sibling. A lifelong friend. Maybe even a spouse. And in those moments of grief, when the world stands still, we're reminded of something we spend most of our lives trying not to think about. Time is not promised. It never has been. You may have 20 more years, or just 2. You may feel vibrant today, and be facing challenges tomorrow. We simply don't know. But here's the gift in that truth, it makes today incredibly precious. I often ask my patients, if you knew for certain this was your last year, what would you do differently? And the answers are never complicated. I'd call my daughter. I'd plant a garden. I'd stop worrying about everything. I'd finally take that trip. So let me ask you now, what's stopping you? Because most people have an answer to that question, but still keep living the same way. They wait for a diagnosis. Or a sign. Or a perfect moment that never arrives. But you don't need a crisis to wake up. You can choose to wake up now, with full awareness of how fragile and beautiful life really is. You can forgive someone who doesn't even know they hurt you. You can say I love you first, even if it makes you feel a little awkward. You can finally start that journal, take that class, go to that place that's been on your list for years. Not everything has to happen today. But something can. Because the goal isn't to live in fear of death, it's to live in respect for life. To honor this one wild, irreplaceable, still unfolding life you've been given. You are here. You are breathing. You have this day. And that is enough reason to begin. So, here we are. If you've stayed with me this far, I want to thank you, not just for listening, but for being willing to look at your life with fresh eyes. That takes courage. That takes heart. Let's take one more moment to remember the journey we've walked together today. You've learned that it's okay to stop saving out of fear. If your needs are covered, your savings aren't meant to sit untouched, they're meant to serve the life you've worked so hard to build. You've remembered that spending money should feel joyful, not pressured. Whether it's a plane ticket to surprise someone you love or a quiet dinner with old friends, meaning matters more than receipts. You've heard that your time is no longer for sale, not unless the work you do still fills your spirit. And if it doesn't, that's okay. You've earned your rest. You've earned your freedom. You felt the pull to stop postponing what your heart quietly longs for. No more waiting for someday. If there's something calling to you, now is the time to begin. You've acknowledged that your health isn't about chasing youth, it's about protecting the freedom to move, to laugh, to live on your own terms. One healthy habit at a time. You've opened yourself to the idea that you don't need to explain your joy. You can wear what you love, say what you mean, and follow your own rhythm without asking permission. You've discovered that your peace is sacred, that the constant stream of fear-filled headlines does not deserve all your attention. You can turn toward hope, toward kindness, toward stillness. You've redefined what money is for. Not control, not obsession, but clarity, confidence, and meaningful experiences. And finally, you've remembered that life isn't endless. And that's not something to mourn. It's something to honor. Because when we let go of the things that don't serve us, fear, guilt, pressure, perfectionism, we make room. Room for laughter. Room for healing. Room for connection, purpose, adventure, and love. Letting go isn't giving up. It's finally giving yourself permission to live more freely, more intentionally, more fully. So I'll ask you, just once, what are you ready to let go of, starting today? Maybe it's something big. Maybe it's something quiet and small. But if you feel moved, I'd love for you to share it in the comments. Because you never know who else might need to hear the words you have the courage to speak. And if this message helped you feel a little lighter, a little braver, or just a little more hopeful, here's one last thing. If you find this helpful, give it a thumbs up. If not, type 0 in the comments, but if it helps, let us know by typing 1. And don't forget to subscribe for more life-saving health tips. Because this chapter of your life is not the closing act. It's your masterpiece. And it's never too late to begin again.